Welcome back to another episode of Bombshell1111 Girl Talk Series Podcast. Bombshell1111 is a platform created to teach ways to nourish the mind, body, and soul. This platform allows this podcast to create weekly content on podcasts with special guests each week that will stimulate your spiritual, mental, and physical growth. The podcasts are played on social media platforms such as Spotify, YouTube, Anchor Radio Station, Apple Podcasts, and more. This station has been created to allow us to interact with each other to share knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and light. So without further ado, please help me welcome your host and founder of Bombshell 1111 Girl Talk Series, Keya.
Another episode of Bombshell 1111 Podcast, Therapy for Women of Color. My name is Keya, and I'm your host. Tonight, you guys, we have a returning guest by the name of Dr. Gail Hamilton. Dr. Gail Hamilton now is also the co-author of the book, Wisdom for Queens, Volume 3. So without further ado, you guys, let's welcome her to the podcast. Welcome back, Dr. Hamilton. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. I love your energy. So it wouldn't be anything but to invite you back.
Does the sound okay? You know, me and this technology.
Yes, you sound great. You sound great.
Okay.
So, Dr. Hamilton, let's jump right in. Tonight's focus is going to be surrounding your new book that you just recently published, Wisdom from Queens, Volume 3. In this book, I know you and 5 women share various life experiences such as domestic violence, sexual trauma, sex, race, employment, discrimination, and also lessons that you guys have learned from others, you know, just to maneuver in today's life challenges. But I would like for you to be able to kind of give us a little bit of a background history on how did you come up with the idea for the book?
Oh, thank you. And the idea for the book is really the brainchild of Melinda Rackley with Rack House Publishing. Mm-hmm. And each year, Melinda would select a group of women to share their story. And based on their story, the theme would develop. And so Volume 3, this is the 3rd year that the book has been published. And I was selected to be one of the 5 women, actually 6, who wrote a chapter in the book. Now, just to give you some background, the other books, Volume 1 was called Relationship Revelations. Volume 2 was Lessons for Our Daughters and Letters to Our Sons, in which their moms writing letters to share their experience and give advice to their children, and something for both male and female. Mm-hmm. And then after she coached us to just write. And my story actually came from a conversation when we were watching and talking about everything that was unfolding. And this was earlier in the year, the social unrest that was going on and racial injustice. And I said, well, it's like deja vu for me. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, what do you mean? Because see, I'm 65. Let me disclose that. Mm-hmm. I'm 65 years old. I've worked at the highest level of governments. I've traveled around the world. I've been responsible for billions of dollars in federal grants, contracts, interagency agreements. And so I retired from the military about 5 years ago. So I've worked in the public and private sector, served in the military, worked for a U.S. senator. So I've kind of been there and done that and have all the T-shirts. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to share that with the audience. And so I grew up at age 65. I grew up in the rural segregated South. And in 1964, if some of you can recall, after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, actually in the early 60s, schools were forced and communities were forced to desegregate because the separate but equal had been dismantled. And so I grew up in an all-Black elementary school in which my parents and grandparents, that place that I went to school was originally called Negro High School. And so I grew up in the rural segregated South. And in 8th grade, I was bused to my class, 9th graders, we were bused to the all-white high school. So needless to say, they were not happy about it. And there were people picketing and protesting, and the community a couple of years before in the 60s, when it had been ruled that they needed to dismantle segregation, had even built another school because they didn't want their kids to go to school with us. I mean, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
So we, had to deal with that just outright racism at that point. But during those 4 years, we found out we were just as smart, we were just as intelligent, we excelled while we were there, and we had the community behind us because we were the first class to be sent over to that high school. So what I'm seeing today, and as I left my high school and went to college, it was the same thing. However, I went to a Methodist college, and so they were more tolerant, more accepting, but still, a lot of people, hey, you're a Black person at this college. This is relatively new.
Right.
And so having the community behind me and having gone through that in high school, it made my college years easier because some of the other African-American students that were there had not been in that situation and had not had to live through it. They came, strictly from a segregated situation. So I was able to take those lessons, and I'm looking back and realize, they were lessons. And then I went on to graduate school in Chicago. Now, Chicago was where it really changed my life because I was in Chicago during the era of African Americans and coming of age and Black is beautiful and after Angela Davis, et cetera. In fact, one of my professors had been one of the Black Panthers out in California. So it was this liberating time when I was in Chicago, and me being dark skinned with this nappy hair, as we would say. Now, when I got there, people were, "Oh, your hair is natural," So my hair, I was accepted for my skin, was accepted because of my hair, and so I really blossomed when I was in Chicago because I didn't have to deal with the race issues, and people accepted me for my intellect and the way I looked. So my experience in Chicago, and so what I did with this book, and I'll share some more of those experiences. So the book is I started writing my experiences from coming from a rural, segregated South, through desegregation, through integration, from being called Negro, colored first. I was colored first, then Negro, then Black, then African American. And so I started writing my experiences as to what lessons were learned and what were nuggets of wisdom that I could share with others that could be applicable today. And it was that experience that helped me through graduate school, working where I did. Like I said, I've worked at the community and the state level. I've worked for a U.S. Senator. I've worked in the office of two secretaries, Secretary of Defense and a Secretary of Health and Human Services. I've traveled the world. And so those experiences from that movement from segregation to integration helped me to be successful in my career. So my chapter in the book is called Lessons from the South, or Lessons of the South. And I offer 5 different types of lessons learned that the book would be of value to everybody, men, women, all ages, to have that aha moment and use those lessons as a tool as you try to maneuver discrimination based on your sex, age, race, your job where you should have gotten the promotion and you didn't get the promotion. How do you keep your spirit and morale up when you're constantly faced with setbacks and issues that have nothing to do with your talent. And so that's what my chapter in the book offers. there are, and I'm going to let you ask questions, but I was going to just kind of touch on the other chapters in the book.
Yes.
Real quick, but
you can go ahead and touch on the other chapters in the book, because it may, well, you know what, let me go ahead and ask these questions because it may segue right into the other chapters of the book.
Okay.
Because I know in the book Wisdom for Queens, Volume 3, you ladies talk about a lot of personal examples and practical wisdom to overcome particular obstacles. And some of those things were the pressure of delays or the disappointment of denial, racial injustice, life-altering trauma, uncertainty of how to achieve career goals. And I kind of wanted to see if you could spend a little time discussing each that's outlined in the book, as well as maybe give some tips on how to overcome each.
Okay. Delayed but not denied. And some of you may be familiar with the expression dreams deferred from Langston Hughes, and Marquita Follins talks about how she had the dream of being a physician, a pharmacist, and all of the setbacks. Every time she would try to put one foot forward, something would come up. And so many of us will have a dream, and the first time we have a setback, we're ready to throw it to the side, right? Forget it. I'll go on to something else. And we never stick to it. So her lesson is stick to your dream. Never give up. Keep fighting for it. People will throw things in your path. You will see different obstacles, but if you hang in there, continue to work towards your dream and continue to work towards your goal. So that's her lesson: is a dream delayed is not a dream denied. And to know the difference. And right now during COVID, it's been a year. There were people who were starting businesses, starting families, starting marriages, starting new jobs, and couldn't show up for work. The job was, they were laid off, and the job was withdrawn. The job offer was withdrawn. So a lot of people are going through that right now, where they're having to pivot and think about, okay, now what do I do? So that chapter encourages one to never give up on your dream.
Okay.
Another chapter in there is called Seasons of Life. And we've all heard, people come into your life for a season and a reason. And we make the mistake of trying to take people from one season to the next. And they're not supposed to be in that other season.
I'm guilty of it myself. Yes, we
all are guilty of that. And so Sharice Bailey is an educator, and she talks about her seasons and how it was, you keep trying to hold on to stuff. It's not working. It's not working. And you keep trying to hold on and fix it. And she had to overcome medical challenges as well as relationship challenges. And some really bad relationship challenges. And so we've all been there too. We've all done things. We holding on. If I just do this, he'll love me. And so she shares seasons of life. People and things happen in your life for a reason, and what you can do to move forward, to continue to move forward, how to leave that baggage behind, how to move on, how to move forward. And so Seasons of Life, that's what that chapter is about.
Okay.
The other chapter is by Nia Renee, and that's her writing name, is called Unapologetically Brilliant. She's an attorney, so that's why that elaborate. And she's a writer and a poet. I can't even say unapologetically. I'm not going to even try anymore. Brilliant.
That whole word. I got you, Dr. Hamilton.
That word. And she talks about how she grew up and was always very smart and inquisitive, and how it would get her in trouble. And having to kind of not show that she was smart as others. Again, she grew up in a situation where she was an African-American girl in a class that was predominantly white, and just being very smart. And, we hear this now, how the smart kids can't show that they're intelligent in school because they're bullied. So that's what she shared, is what her life has been, having to be this intelligent person who, like I said, is an attorney, is a writer, is a poet, etc. And when people then go, oh, okay, you get that look from people because, you're smarter than everybody else, you know everything. And then people start passing judgment on you and you're just doing your thing. So she offers advice on, you don't have to apologize for anybody to be you. Just be you. Whatever that is, just be you. So that's what that chapter is about.
And speaking of that, it's so ironic that you say that, because previously I had a gentleman on the podcast and he pretty much said that's what made him successful, because he was so different. And he got teased so much because he was always the smarter kid. He would get called a nerd. But now, in being an adult and in his early 20s, he's been so successful. He's written 3 different books. He's a TED speaker. So he does a lot of different things. And that's very similar to what you were saying. So it's just not a woman that goes through those types of things. Men go through that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
Apologize. Yeah, don't apologize. Yeah. Just be who you are. You have to be true to yourself. Be who you are. And then Carmen Drayton, the other author, her Journey of an Overcomer. And hers is very touching and very, I think it's the most emotional, because she talks about her trauma, her sexual abuse. And she thought that people would judge her. But we all told her, as we talked to her, many women have been through this, as we saw with the Me Now movement, that she's not the only one. And so she talks about the shame and guilt that she carried, and then finally being able to speak out. So her chapter is there to encourage other women to speak out and to get help. But to be an overcome, to don't let that define you, that trauma define you for the rest of your life. How to move on and how to overcome. So that's what her chapter is about. So the book, and Melinda, like I said, Melinda Rackley, shout out to Melinda, in being able, because to select 5 women with different backgrounds and different stories to be able to put together in this book, which is Wisdom from Queens, Volume 3. You can find it at docgail.com, docgail.com. It's on Amazon, but don't order it from Amazon, order it from me. Jeff Bezos makes enough money. But yes, we are on Amazon. It's a best-selling book, by the way. So docgail.com if you go to my website, and then I autograph it, and I do special packaging for the book. And again, it's for people of all races, all sex, because men and women, to be able to take away lessons, especially with everything we're going through right now. When we go through this and come out, we're going to be so happy we get through 2020. And when we get to year 2021, we need to be prepared, and we need to have some tools because we've never been through this before. And one part of me is this 40 years as a social work hat. We will need some tools because this has been different for everyone.
Yes,
and
very different.
Our mental health is really being tested. You have to be there for yourself. You have to be there for your family members. So many of us have lost loved ones and friends. And so what are some of the tools to help you pivot and get ready and set for 2020?
So, Dr. Hamilton, with you writing this book and sharing your experiences, what piece of advice would you give a young author or author that's starting off, wanting to follow that same path in which you and those other 5 ladies have started?
Find someone who can mentor you, that you just write, and don't get caught up. And one of the things in my book, we need to stay in our lanes. A lot of reason people have challenges and it's difficult to meet their goals is that we think we can do everything. We believe our own BS. Find people as you go through life Have a great team around you. Stay in your lane and develop your team of other experts and people that complement what you do. I can do a lot of things, but I'm lousy with finance and numbers. I cannot do my taxes. You know, but people, I don't want to pay that. I don't want to do this. But what I did in all of my jobs, when I hired people, I hired them to complement what I could not do. I was not intimidated. And so I tell people, find a mentor that's 10 to 15 years older than you. Because when you have someone in your cohort, when you have someone in your age, they haven't been through it. They're going through the same challenges and obstacles that you're having. And so you get with them and you all commiserate. But if you want advice on which way to go, which path to take, get with someone that, because you don't want to listen to your parents, but get with someone who's still close to your age, but who's been through it. And they can say, well, you know, I thought about doing that too. And this is XYZ what I found out. And this is what I did. And this is what happened to me. So you may not want to do that. Or if you're going to do it, consider this. So I'm sharing this as a little off the author, but I know a lot of people want to self-publish, and that's great, but find someone who can help you, who can read your manuscript, because this comes from people writing grants and me serving on committees. People have great passion, but they're not always great writers. So have someone else that can look at your work and make sure the grammar is correct, because we've lived it and we think we're expressing it, but we're not. Because we'll put the sky is blue, and then we know what everything is behind the sky is blue, because we've lived that experience. It was a storm. It was a storm yesterday, and then a hurricane and a flood, and now the sky is blue. But you didn't put all that other stuff in there that we got to the sky is blue. So it's always good to have someone read. It could be a family member. It could be a friend. Let them read it and see if it makes sense, and take advice. You don't have a thin skin if you're getting into this book writing world. You may think it's important, but you also have to be prepared to sell your book. You can't just get your book written and then just sit there and go, okay, I told some friends and I'm going to sell 1,000 books. So don't think this is not easy. Once you get it written, you have to market. You're going to have to get out there and put yourself on the line to market it. So this is not, nobody's coming in to give you an unknown a writing bonus to write a book. But the advice that I just shared is something that I hope people listening will do, which is find yourself a mentor. Listen. Don't be thin skinned. Listen. People have done that, and people often advise so that you don't go through the pain and the tears that we went through. Now, when they're trying to tell me what to do, we're just trying to save you some grief.
Ooh, yes, and some sorrow.
And some sorrow. People were just trying to, if you don't have to cry the tears, Regina Bell said, it has this, I'm just trying to sort of cry your tears, that you don't have to cry the tears that I've cried. So that would be my first piece of advice. Yeah.
Okay. And so we're running out of time, Dr. Hamilton, but I still have a couple more questions. Well, I have one question left for you, and then I want to allow you some time to give, of course, your shout out to your support system and anyone that may be listening tonight. And also, again, where to be able to contact you and to purchase the book. Can you leave us with 2 books that you would suggest the listeners in the audience to pick up as a quick read? That could be educational and reference to are very similar to Wisdom for Queens.
Yes. I can't think of the author. Where's the book? One is, you can find it on Amazon, The Art of Saying No Without Feeling Guilty. Because we let other people dominate our lives, and we will wear ourselves out trying to help others without putting ourselves first. We never put ourselves first. And oftentimes we get spread too thin because we don't have the power or know how to say no graciously. I have next to my computer, no is a beautiful word. So the art of saying no. And the other book is, and I didn't know you asked me that question, God, I have to ask it. The art of saying no. But the other book is the Essentialism, 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 the disciplined pursuit of self. And this book has been out maybe 10, 15 years or even more. And I first heard about it when Oprah had the author on her show. And I recommend that book to everyone because you've heard me talk about my career. Yeah. And I would be working a 26-hour day in a 24-hour window. And this book talks about how to structure your life, how to set a priority. Because if we think about it, we have changed the language and have priorities, IES. A priority is one thing. How can you have 15 priorities? I mean, it just, so it walks you through, and I recommend that for everyone in planning their lives, planning their careers. It teaches you how to approach planning to be successful so that you have family time. I talk about that in my book. I was so busy working, trying to provide for my family that my daughter said to me one time when I was watching her play with my grandkids. And I said, "Oh, I love the way you play with the kids." And she said, "Yeah, because you never played with us." And so we're working hard and we come in and we're exhausted and we don't have time to spend with our families, not quality times. Essentialism talks to, at a certain point, when you walk through that door, it should be about family. Because also in my book, I talk about how I had a friend who worked. And when she passed away, they had a black ribbon on her door one day. And the next day they had somebody in there taking her job. Yeah. And we bring work home and don't spend time with our families. And I'm guilty of this. I did. And if I could do it over. And so I share that with people. So I like the book Essentialism, which talked about, leave that stuff at it's not that important. I have one friend I'm going to shout out, Beryl Eve. She's a microbiologist. She works at MD Anderson. Now she's at Baylor working on the cure for cancer. Wow. Okay. Anybody else is a clipboard job. It ain't that important. It's not the cure for cancer. It will be there tomorrow. And if you're dead and gone, they'll replace you in 24, 48 hours.
That's so true, Dr. Hamilton.
So we have got to stop taking this stuff from home from work and what has to be done now. Learn to set a priority, one. So that's tidbit. That's my shout out to Beryl Eve.
Let the listeners know where to get your book, Dr. Hamilton, and where to contact you on social media platforms.
Go to docgail.com. There you'll find my book, my other businesses, my other products. If you click on education resources, you will find other podcasts that you can listen to when I talk about financial wellness, the 4 keys to wealth, which is the other podcast that Keya and I did.
Yes, woo-hoo.
Shout out to Bombshell. So if you go to docgil.gail.com, and then you can always reach me .gail.com, .gail@.gail.com, and you'll find all that on my website.
Okay. Well, Dr. Hamilton, I want to thank you so much for coming back and being a returning guest on Bombshell1111 Podcast. I told you always I love your energy, and I want to continue to network with you because I love your knowledge that you share. And even some of the things that you shared tonight kind of touched home with me, especially when you said how your daughter says you didn't play with them when you were raising them, because my daughters tend to say that to me now, and I'm like, oh my God, they say I work too much.
You work too much. I'm miles of babe. That's right.
Yeah, and every time you talk, it's always wisdom and knowledge, and I appreciate that. So again, I thank you so much for coming on and being a part of Bombshell 1111 Podcast.
You're so welcome. Take care.
You too. And you guys, without any further ado, always remember, you are a bomb within your own shell. Peace, love, and light. And good night, you guys. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted, rate, review, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some valuable information that can help you on your personal journey. Also, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Bombshell1111 or at Bombshell1111 TV. You can also check out our mental health page, Your Health is Your Wealth, on Facebook, which is a page created to inform and support individuals with mental health and other health conditions. And with that being said, always remember, you guys, you are a bomb within your own shell. And until next time, peace, love, and light.